Welcome to Creativity, the podcast where art and engineering collide. My name is Jeremy S. Cook. I'm your host for this show, and we've got a special guest today, Stan, the CMO at SurroRTG. Can you say hi, Stan?
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here on the podcast. Thank you
Yeah,
for inviting me.
yeah. Well, we're so happy to have you, and I guess Surrogate.tv. The way I understand it is it's basically a website that you log on to and you play video games, but these just aren't any video games. I mean, you're not actually playing on the screen. You're playing real life things. Is that a correct assessment, Stan?
That is a very good explanation, Jeremy. Indeed. So what we do at Surrogate Games is we try to experiment with a new, new type of online video games where everything happens in real life. Instead of trying to mimic the environment using graphics, we're actually mimicking everything in real life and letting people explore real physics, real interaction, real graphics as they are in real life.
Okay, so what I mean, what's an example of that? What was your first, I guess, interaction or game or whatever you would say?
So
What do you call it? Do you call these games, I guess, or
yeah, we
experience?
call them we call them so some of us call them surrogate experiences. So that's the kind surrogate gaming is kind of the concept that we're calling because you're kind of a surrogate as you're interacting in another part of the world as a robot. So you're kind of using it as a surrogate.
Sure.
Uh, but yeah, we call them real life games. That's another way to kind of say that, to kind of explain that. But yeah, the first game we launched publicly was actually nearly a year ago, a bit more than a year. We just had a party like a couple of weeks ago about it. And it was called Race Real Cars 143. So this is a game where you actually drive real miniature 143 scale RC cars over the internet here in our office in Espoo, Finland, over the internet. It's a top-down game, so you see the whole map like in some old video games, maybe you would see the same type of experience, but you are driving actual real cars on a racetrack. That was kind of our first game where we would let people control real life. The interesting part about it was quite often people would not even realize that we designed it kind of so well that people would not realize that it was a video, there was a real life car that they were driving. They were thinking it's a video game, and then they would say, the graphics seem odd. What is the game engine you're using, or how are you making it? And we're like, no, dude, this is a real car you're controlling. Like, no way. And then people get mind blown because it's such a unusual concept, especially if you're driving it from like North America, and you're like, I'm driving a real car in Europe over the ocean in near real time. So that's like a very interesting experience, especially when you do it for the first time.
Oh yeah, I mean yeah, it's mind blowing. I mean it's certainly I would imagine other people. I mean seems like I've seen somebody a video where you could control like a cat food feeder over the internet, it's stuff like that. But this is, I mean that game was literally you were driving cars around, it would recharge itself, right? And it
Yeah.
would
So
everything was automated, supposedly,
yeah.
right?
So the way we kind of aimed our projects is that they will always run 24/7, or at least that's our always vision, or our main goal is to design a game in a way that it could self-operate for as long as possible without any human interaction. So the game in RC, what we did is we had image recognition that is able to recognize the cars and also drive them around the track, so the racetrack, to kind of restart the game. We also have charging stations which we made. They're custom-made charging stations that when a car basically parks, on the bottom there are two plates that connect to the car, and they basically start charging the car.
That's really incredible.
So
But
but there's like a bit. It's a bit of an interesting thing when you work with real life, with real hardware, right? You might see that some things might break once in a while. So that's kind of something that was a learning experience for us when building real life games. That when you make a video game, everything just works perfectly. When you're doing real robots, you have to prepare and do a lot of testing. So.
oh, I'm sure. So I mean, but that was just the start, right? You guys have how many games do you guys have now?
So right now we have three main games, like which we launched last year, and those were the Race Real Cars. Then there was a Batman 66 pinball machine, which we hooked online, and it's been running. It's probably the busiest machine in the world. We had more than 70,000 games already, I believe, in less than a year.
Wow.
And then we also have Sumo Bots, which is our more like major game that we launched. It's in collaboration with the huge esports brands. So it's a battle royale style game where you fight real sumo bots on a battle royale arena. So each of the pieces goes down, and it's kind of like Fortnite or PUBG, but in real life. And then you represent an esports team, as each of the bots represents one of those when you play the game. So those are the three main games. This year, we also had some events. For example, we had a toilet paper claw arcade, a claw machine where we were giving out 1,000 toilet paper rolls to people over the world when there was a shortage. Slight disclaimer, no, we didn't actually hoard 1,000 toilet paper rolls, but we were shipping them online. But yeah, we had a fun event like that. And then also when we had May the 4th, the Star Wars Day, we also had a claw machine there where we had a 72-hour tournament. And then last week, we had a little exploratory mission, which is a new experiment we're running. And that is where we take a robot outside on the streets of our city and we try to go to different locations without anybody managing the robot, all using the same software suite that we developed called SurroRTG.
Okay.
So yeah, but we have a lot more stuff coming. Unfortunately, I cannot tell everything, but let's just say throughout this whole year learning about the games, we've been slowly getting closer and closer to kind of opening our software to also other people to use this ultra low latency video streaming and remote controls tools. And we're
Right.
kind of building a platform around that, so to say. Yeah, I mean, it like especially when we see toys and robotics, we often see that they, especially like the entry ones, we often see that they are not designed for maybe long-term applications or for using it in a long time. And of course, like in an application like ours, those things come to a test. Same goes like when we had with pinball machines, even with pinball machines, because our users put it under such stress tests. You can see that even though pinball manufacturers do their best to do a lot of quality assurance and testing, the issues we see when a maintenance person comes to check what has broken, they're like, I have never seen this anywhere else except on online machine. So
Well, yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, in an arcade, you've got a pinball machine that's, it's not being used all the time, certainly not 24 hours, but then in your application, you've got it running and running and running and running. I mean, I guess, well, what has the reception been like? Have people been pretty much playing this all the time?
yeah, so unless the machine is offline, because we sometimes have to fix them or maintain them, they're in most time always full. So somebody is always playing everything. With the sumo bots, it's always busy. We have queues. Same with the racing game; it's quite busy. And on pinball, I think the biggest queue though we had was on the toilet paper claw. I think we had at the same time like 300 people in queue. So people would wait for hours, literally for like 4 or 5 hours to try and win their toilet paper.
Wow. Well, that's that's interesting.
It's a weird feeling, but it's very interesting how like this surrogate experiences connect the world, especially during such uncertain times as now, where you kind of cannot go out easily or you cannot, meet your friends in real life. So this is kind of
Sure.
an alternative way to do that.
So how do you? I mean, I guess only some of these games are available at certain times. Do they kind of rotate? Is that the idea?
Yeah, so the pinball games run 24/7 as long as they are working. And then the other two, the racing and the robot fighting, they run on the weekends. So the racing works only on Fridays, but Sumo Bots runs on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we usually have somebody to hosting the game. So it's either I'm on a live stream like in the studio, or we have somebody like our moderators in US or in Europe just checking up on the game in case something goes really bad, just in case, as these are real robots and they're moving electronics, so
Oh,
nothing
yeah,
goes bad. Yeah,
absolutely.
but it's pretty cool. Like with the sumo bots, we have like two of our moderators are in US and they just start a game, the robots self reset to their starting points, the game just begins, and the game runs for like 4 or 5 hours straight, and then they just turn it off, and they just managed it from another part of the world, and they were like real robots like moving around and doing stuff throughout the whole time and actually trying to destroy each other. So
So are they are the hosts, are they commentators? Are they, kind of like a sports commentator, or are they just kind of
so
supervising?
when we so on Friday we have a tournament where we actually comment and we have prizes and giveaways, and then on the other days some of the moderators do live commentary, and other times they just turn on the game and make sure that everything runs smoothly. Like say one of the bots will start misbehaving, they can turn it off, and the game will continue with only 5 out of 6 bots, but nobody will have a bad robot kind of in the game. Or they will remotely connect to one of the bots if it's having issues and move it around or kind of unstuck it, sort of.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So how does one play these games? What do you do?
You can just go to our website. It's surrogate.tv, and you can see the variety of games there. All of them are free to play, and you can just log in and make, as long as the game is online, you can play it. And yeah, that's it. It's as easy as that.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I mean, so I guess that being said, what's the business model with you guys? Like, what's the? I guess we kind of touched on this a little bit, but what's your eventual goal with this?
So right now, we are all our games are for free, as we are trying to inspire people to see the potential of this technology and what can actually people do. Uh, but of course, long term, we are going to offer other game creators potentially. If people create their own games on our website, they are able to choose if they would like to potentially charge for the experience that they're making for people or not. It's up to them.
Okay, interesting. So basically, you guys are putting together a platform that eventually people will be able to use to do whatever they want, as far as they could
Yes.
have they could
If
have
you have
their
a
own pinball
robot,
game or
if you have a
whatever else.
robot, a drone, a car, whatever that a person from the other part of the world can somehow interact dynamically with or interact with the world with, you can just easily connect it to our platform and either make it as a fun experience for everybody, or it can also be a potential business where you can actually make money on that.
Okay, well that's interesting. So you're I guess the heart of your technology is the people interacting with each other, not so much the games are cool, certainly, but it's underlying architecture that you guys think is kind of your
Yeah,
special
exactly.
sauce, I guess. I hate to
I
say
mean,
that, but
it comes for everything. We do believe that what will pave the way for this future of this surrogate experiences, we do think that firstly it will be entertainment and games, just because it's way easier to grasp and also develop. But also, of course, there are other applications. So yeah, the way we're building the platform right now is, of course, mainly focusing on the entertainment aspect. So you can do whatever you could imagine with this tech. And kind of what we call it is the SurroRTG, which is the main suite that works with our website. And you can install it on a Raspberry or on a computer, and you get instantly the ultra low latency video streaming, which is like under 200 milliseconds, even on a 4G network, which is kind of impressive. And then at the same time, you also have easy way to control all types of robotics, like motors, actuators, switches, etc.
hmm. Oh, so hmm, that's very very interesting. Um, well, yeah, tell you what, I mean, we were maybe going to try to get into some of the nuts and bolts of how your system works in the second half of this. So if you want, let's go ahead and take a coffee break, and we can kind of come back after that and talk about some of the how stuff works under the hood. Does that sound good?
Sure, sounds like a plan. Let's do that.
Hi, Jeremy Cook here, and since we're having our coffee break, I'm going to give a shout out to our top 5 Patreons as we do every show. If you want to become a Patreon or a top 5 Patreon, just go to patreon.com/the creativity podcast. And if you're one of our top 5 donors, when we record it, we'll give you a shout out too. That can be a company or anything really. So it's Brian Moses, Pat Regan, Positive Waves, Old School DIY, that's at GFC62, and Stephen Booker. Thanks so much for watching and listening. If you want to support the show further, like as an advertisement, get in touch. It's hi@jeremyscook.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll get you back to your show.
All
All
right.
right. Well, welcome back. We just had our coffee break, and I just found out that Stan doesn't really drink coffee. Actually, I don't either. I just kind of say that because it sounds good, I think. But yeah, we had a couple of questions from listeners. I guess we kind of answered this, but Alex from South Carolina asks, "Are you guys really based in Finland, or where are you guys exactly?"
Yeah, so we are a Finnish company. So we're based in Espoo, Finland, which is a city right in the capital area. And then we have, but our CEO Shane Allen, he's from Florida, so he's American, but he's like Finnish American. So he moved here a couple, maybe 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, that's
yeah, but
interesting. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
actually in Florida myself, so
Oh, really?
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Uh, I didn't know that. For some reason I thought you were from California, but that was my should have
Well, you
checked.
know, we both claim to be the Sunshine State, and I live in the Bay Area, which is Tampa Bay area. So,
But yeah, kind of to summarize your question, indeed, we are based in Finland. We're a pretty international team. We have people from US, from all parts of Europe, from Russia, and of course a lot of Finnish developers as well.
oh,
So we're currently a team of, I believe, 18 people. So
okay.
yeah.
Well, very, very, very neat. Um, okay, so Pat Regan, who's a Patreon of the show and friend of the show, I suppose, he says this looks like some fascinating stuff, and I'd agree with that. I've only looked at the pinball machine so far. I'm curious how he hooks the pie into the controls. Is he using some sort of servo to hit the buttons, or is he tapping into the wiring and using relay or transistor to trigger the press? I think you've actually got a pretty good answer for that, Stan. Is that right?
Well, there's actually it's a good area of thought because that's kind of where we started as well. Because initially we didn't open the pinball machine and we were thinking, yeah, maybe we should use some actuators to actually press the buttons. And we actually had a prototype of that, and also we had a kind of, it's not a linear motor, but it's like we were trying to figure out how to do the plunger. So we were thinking of like uh,
Like a
kind of getting it back,
solenoid?
yeah, like a solenoid to kind of shoot it. But then as we started looking into the pinball machine, we realized that, hey, why would we do that? There's so much easier way where you can just connect into existing connections of wires. So initially in the first version of the Batman 66 pinball machine, we were using a relay because that's kind of the easy way. It's available on the market easily, and you can hook it to your Raspberry without having to do much. So when we launched the game, we were using the relay. So it was just sending the 5-volt signals to the existing buttons. But then later, we were this year hooking up a new pinball machine called it's Oktoberfest by American Pinball. And there we saw an issue that not all of the connection, there wasn't a button to push a ball out to kind of start the game. So we kind of had to connect to the existing coil of the pinball machine, which meant that we had to send a lot of current in a short period of time. And for that, we actually developed our own hat for a Raspberry Pi 4. It's custom designed PCB, assembled partially by us, partially by a manufacturer in China. We had to fix some things. It's still in prototyping. But yeah, so we had to develop our own board, our own shield for the Raspberry Pi. Specifically, the main kind of requirement was to be able to send a 48-volt signal to the coil that shoots the ball out of the game. So kind of when you press a space button on your keyboard and you shoot the game, we actually send a very high current. And of course, it's not really possible initially from a Raspberry Pi, so we had to do a small modification. And then we have a bunch of we send transistor signals, so basic 5-volt outputs to the buttons. So for like start button or the flipper buttons. So we use 5-volt for that, and then we also have a service credit button to kind of start a game for every person when a game starts. And then we also have a bunch of we have inputs, so we listen to when the game has ended. So we use the LED of a pinball machine, which is on the start button. Kind of, we found that there's a pattern that it starts blinking, so we use that. And then for knowing when there's a ball inside of a shooting lane, so we kind of designed a custom PCB that you can basically use in most of arcade applications like pinball, claw machines, whatever type of arcades you could potentially imagine, and it probably will work. And then we came up with this smart solution for cabling where, because pinball machines are pretty expensive, I don't know if you know, but for example, a new machine costs from probably $8,000 to $12,000 at least. And this
I
is
didn't know that. No.
yeah, we didn't know initially as well. We were like, what? But you don't want to damage the machine that much, or you don't want to like solder or desolder any cables. So we came up with this. Well, we didn't come up ourselves. It's an existing solution on the market, but it's basically like a clipper where you have a cable coming from a Raspberry Pi from this side, and then here you just wire to an existing cable and you kind of clip it in. So then you're able to output electricity not just from the pinball machine itself, but also from the Raspberry Pi, and send it to whatever command you have or whatever solenoid you have.
That's really cool. And you don't quite know what that's called, do you? I wonder if
I
I
wish I could have known.
no,
It's by
I
it's
don't
by
either. I
3M.
wonder
That,
one
that's all.
I wonder if one of our listeners or viewers would like to comment
Let me
in
show it on
on that.
camera. If somebody is watching, maybe you can guess. But here's how it looks. And then you have one cable you hook into from your Raspi and the other one to an existing cable.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
Well, when Stan was first describing this to me, I was thinking he meant like a Wago connector, like one of these lever nuts, which I just happen to have here, which are pretty cool too. But it's not even the same thing. It literally you just put it around the cable, snap it down, and like a razor almost, like a piece of metal
yeah,
comes
it
down,
partially
connects it.
it partially cuts the outer the outer plastic, I guess, or the tube. So then it kind of gets to the metal, and then it just connects the signal that way because both of the cables have the same metal clipped inside of the cable.
So it's not capacitive. It's literally touching the metal to the metal. Is that
Yes,
okay?
yeah, it's just touching metal to metal.
Huh. Well, that's really neat. I
It,
hope
it,
somebody
it's
figures out what that is.
it's convenient for hacking. Sorry, guys. I wish I would have known what exactly is the name, but I will tweet it when you publish the. I will comment under the when you publish the podcast. So
Oh
then,
well, thanks so
how
much. I
about that?
I feel like I should know that too. I feel pretty up on this kind of thing usually, but
There's
um,
so many things in the makerspace
there are
to
many
remember.
many things to remember. I feel like I keep learning and learning and learning, and it's like at some point I feel like I'll know everything, but it's like
You
every
cannot know everything.
you just
Only
know.
Google can know everything, right?
I feel like I know less and less as I learn more. It's very
Yeah.
strange. So I guess the other thing, what kind of camera setups you guys have? It must be pretty exotic, I guess, right?
We've been testing everything because fundamentally, what comes to us, which is very important, is of course latency. But we also try to look at quality quite a lot. So of course, the best is you kind of have to have a compromise where you have a nice looking image when a player is playing the game, but you also kind of have a really good latency, and that is kind of one example why we cannot use a fancy DSLR camera on our game, because there's so much post-processing. Then you have to have a capture card to convert it, and then since you're not getting a raw, you have to do a lot of fancy stuff to kind of get it to the end user, which kind of increases the latency quite a lot. The more kind of factors you have in between, the the worse it is, especially if you have an extra capture card, for example, in between. So then it kind of moves to, we can use a Raspberry Pi camera, a Raspberry Pi HD camera, or we can use a USB camera, like a UVC compliant webcam. And that's kind of the places where we mainly look into. So of course, when we made our first prototype, it was a no-brainer. It was still a couple of years ago. There was no HD camera, the high quality camera. So we used the Raspi camera version 2, I believe,
Right.
and that was pretty good uh, for the time. But as we were looking more and more into it, we realized that many web cameras have a better quality, at least in the beginning, if you just don't do too much customizations or like trying to affect the controls too much, especially for video. So we kind of found that there's a couple of nice web cameras out there. We mainly use Logitech cameras, Logitech
Logitech.
web cameras. Surprisingly, what's amazing about them is the color reproduction compared to other cameras on the market. So when you have an item and you position a camera in front of it, of course you will need to adjust like the contrast and everything, but the color reproduction is always way more accurate than what we see on other web cameras, so to say. So that's kind of
So I
where
guess
we
it's
are.
I guess it's a good question for people that are maybe not looking to do exactly what you do, but something similar. What webcam would you recommend? What's your after all this research, and even if you're like me doing a podcast, whatever, what would you recommend as the best webcam to get?
So far, the golden standard in our experience is the Logitech C925E. The reason we use that one specifically is also because of its angle, because it has a wider angle field compared to other Logitech cameras. So then in a game, you can kind of see more, which is usually very important. So
Right.
that is kind of the best one. It has best latency, image quality, and everything, kind of what we found. Unfortunately, right now, because of the current situation in the world, cameras became very expensive, but more importantly, very hard to get. So even if you have the bucks, it might be just sold out in many places. So
Oh,
in
okay.
our case, we had to order a couple of those, maybe 20 of those not so long ago, and we had to order them directly from the supplier in China because you couldn't find them anywhere in Europe. They're just sold out because everybody is zooming right now. So everybody needs a webcam.
So
So that would be
what you're saying is that you're the reason for the shortage.
no, not me. But we didn't buy anything when it all started. So we kind of had to find it in a manufacturer kind of supplier from China straight away. So yeah, we didn't do anything bad. But one kind of thing that was a bit unexpected because when the Raspi HQ camera came out, I think the moment they announced it in 2 days, we already had them testing because we were so excited about them.
Oh yeah,
But
I got one of those. Those are fabulous. I think, or
well,
maybe
I
you
don't
don't
know.
think so. I don't know.
At least in our experience, we like the image quality after testing a lot and messing with all the settings, we somehow were not achieving like a vibrant picture. So
Hmm.
of course, the camera is great for latency, but we, at least in our use case so far, hopefully they'll have new software updates or something because the sensor itself should be good. So hopefully soon that will be resolved. At least when we tested, it wasn't as
Sure.
good as the Logitech.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's yeah. Don't mean to put you on the spot there. In my limited testing, it did seem like the software maybe needed some time to catch up. But compared to the previous Pi camera, I was flabbergasted by it. But
Yeah,
but I'm not comparing
the
it to webcam or anything else either. I
Yeah,
mean,
I guess one also thing maybe I can point out with that one is that you kind of have to have the camera pretty far away because of the lenses that they supply. And if we have something very close up, especially with the projects we have coming up, we have to have something that has a wide angle and it can be close to the object. Like you don't have to put it like
okay,
a couple of feet away just to show show a robot, you know,
right, right. So yeah,
if
it's
the camera is attached to it. Yeah.
you've got quite the niche application, I guess.
Yeah, but there's a lot of interesting also Chinese cameras. The problem is many people won't know about them. Like they have cameras with image stabilization, like optical image stabilization. It's just a tiny
Oh, really?
web camera. Yeah, they even have those. And then also what Arducam is doing is pretty interesting. I don't know if you know about those cameras.
Yeah, it's
They have like
like a low, what was like a low what am I trying to say? Like a low end vision system, basically. Is that correct?
Well, they have a bunch of different cameras. They have for Jetsons, for
Okay.
Raspis, for basically for everything. And they have USB cameras. They have what's the connection? CSI connection camera. So you just plug in like a Raspi camera, and like they at least claim that they are redoing their like they're trying to improve the Raspi camera. So that's interesting. But it's a long journey. We have probably hundreds of cameras in our office that we tested.
Oh wow.
Uh, and it's always, so far, the golden standard is still the
So
Logitech
Logitech.
C925E. Yes.
I mean, I guess they've been doing it for quite a while, so you'd think they'd. It's good
Yeah.
to know, I guess. So.
Well, this I guess the part that is not maybe nice about those now they're making newer ones which have more features, but those features because of extra computing they cause more latency, which of course in our case is not optimal.
Hmm.
Like they just released a new camera. It's great. It has a lot of really cool features for maybe streaming, but for a surrogate game it maybe is not perfect.
Sure. And you say it's at 200 milliseconds. I guess I don't do a lot of gaming, but I mean, it seems to me like if you're playing, a traditional computer game, that'd be a fairly poor ping, right? But for you, you're
Yeah.
going through
So
the camera, you're doing all this other processing, all of that you're doing in 2/10 of a second. Is that?
Yeah, so when I say 200 ms sub, I mean specifically on a 4G connection. So that's kind of where it's cool that it's not even on an Ethernet, but it's on a
Oh, okay,
4G.
okay.
If we're talking Ethernet connection, it goes lower. I mean, we see if you're in the same region and you have a good connection to, like if you're in Europe and the game is in Europe and you have a good connection at home, like fiber optics, and if you look at the map, that you don't have to go through many countries to get to our office, kind of like there's a direct connection from UK, for example, to Finland, then you can get 150, 140 even sometimes. So it's for an high definition video, it's pretty amazing. Uh, so yeah, of course, if you're playing from US, it might differ since you have to send a signal over the ocean. But it takes just a couple of games to get used to, and it's pretty amazing how you play literally 4 or 5 games and you don't even notice the slight increase in delay anymore. You kind of know, especially in the games where it's more predicting, where you can easily predict, like racing.
Sure. Well, it's interesting how spoiled we are. It's like oh, well, this high definition game that we're playing a real thing, you know, thousands of miles away, oh, but they can't give it to me in, less than 2/10 of a second. That's somehow, you know,
Well, I mean, it's great. I mean,
oh,
consumers are pushing us to do better and
it's,
better tech as they have high demand. So
it's
I think it's
just,
pretty cool.
it's just incredible. I mean, it's incredible that anybody would think this was possible. And then I guess just to be comparing it. Anyway,
That that's
I'm
kind of
just
always
constantly amazed at the kind of technology people are able to put out there, including yourselves, obviously. It's
well, thank you. But it's always also like for me interesting because we often hear like teleoperation and as a term, and it's like in advanced use cases like I don't know driving a truck over America, on a highway, and then usually it's an autonomous car, and then somebody could through internet connect to it and manage it, or a NASA like a robot on Mars or something like things that, or a rover like that. But and we always think of those things as like either complex or they will be not so well executed. So what we're trying to kind of achieve is that hey, you can have the most basic hardware available on the market, and then yet you can have that premium experience where things kind of happen instantly. Of course, like that's kind of the thing. We have a racing game, so of course latency there matters quite a lot because it's like fast-paced environment. You're literally playing a game where speed is the main thing. But if you're having a robot, just like exploratory robot going around, you
oh
don't
yeah,
even notice the latency because it's so minimal. It feels like instant. Same with like a game like Claw Machine. But the reason we do ourselves games like a pinball game or like a racing game or like an esports style game is because that's where the latency matters the most. We're pushing kind of the limits of what can we achieve technologically
right.
with video streaming.
Yeah, that's amazing. But I guess you guys are obviously at the high end of this, but if let's just say somebody at home wanted to try something similar themselves, I mean, certainly they're not going to be competing with you, but how would you actually get started with that? Can you buy one of your hats, or is that kind
So
of a
we don't currently sell the hats, but we are planning to do that closer to maybe mid-end autumn, or at least we will be sharing, of course, the design. But for example, for many of these use cases, you can just buy also off market. There are some Raspi hats that have motor controllers. For example, if you want to connect an RC car, a pinball project, you can also use a relay board on many of the pinball machines that there are. So you can also use that. But my suggestion is to wait for maybe a month or two or maybe three, because in autumn we are going to announce and give access to anybody to be able to create these type of games on our website. So
really?
we
That's
will have,
that's that's so exciting. That's sounds awesome.
yeah. So if you have a robot you want to connect online, if you have an RC car you want to drive over the internet or whatever else you have, just wait a little bit because a lot of exciting stuff is going to come
Sure.
this
Well,
autumn.
I was going to ask, how somebody could get involved, but I guess probably your answer would be just wait just a tiny bit, and then you can just
Yeah.
the world
If
is
someone
yours.
is really wants to do something and they just cannot wait, maybe DM me because we can potentially add you to our special program where we are working with
Oh,
some
nice.
people early on. But
Well, how does one
otherwise,
get a hold of you?
um, you should join our Discord community and you can
Okay.
find me there. Yeah, we
Okay.
have more than 1.4 thousand people, I guess, already who are real life players and fan of this whole new phenomenon of real life gaming. So make sure to check it out.
Nice. Where is that Discord? Where do you
Uh,
find that?
you can go to discord.gg/surrogatetv, or you can go to any of our social media profiles and you'll find the link there. So our main brand is Surrogate TV. So wherever you'll Google Surrogate TV, you'll find us.
Okay, very cool. And I guess let me just ask this: are you guys hiring? I mean, if you guys really really like what you guys are doing, is that
Yes, we are always looking for some new talent. Of course, this is an exciting field, so we usually have a lot of applicants. But feel free to check out our positions, and also if you just want to work on the future of real life gaming, you can also submit an open application. Some of our, for example, new hires, one of the guys, he was one of our active members in the community, and then he became a moderator, and then he was super proactive. So we actually offered him to join the team. So it's a interesting funnel where you have great people in the community itself.
Oh, that's awesome. And you guys, I guess primarily you guys are in Finland, but I guess you have some people in the US as well and probably
We
elsewhere,
have
I guess.
people all over the world. We have one of our new hires is a designer, and he lives in Japan. And then we have people in Russia, some developers, and then the main office is here, but remote work is also possible.
Nice, nice. So I guess one thing I try to kind of discuss with all the guests is what have you been working on? I guess just talk about your progress, either at work or maybe at home. Any cool projects you're working on?
Well, I think, like our office is basically a ultimate playground where you can come up with anything and just do it, especially robotics wise. We have everything for that. We also have a bunch of toys that we can potentially hook up. I don't know if you see on the camera, but on the side, I have a bunch of like RC tanks, RC cars. So everything is hookable. So I just need time and will.
Just
But the most interesting project last week we launched this rover experience where we used a Sphero rover. I don't know if you know about those. It's like an educational bot,
right.
and we connected a Raspberry Pi to. We connected a Raspberry Pi to it. Connected the camera, a 4G modem, and kind of like put it all in a nice way so you could see the bot and drive around the city. And that was kind of the last project I was working on. It was pretty because we never drove anything outside of our office. All of our games are built here inside or in another office. But going with a robot outside is a very interesting or unusual experience because you cannot even like realize it's like you see a biker, you have to stop. You see a car, you have to stop. You have to follow the rules. We had some kids last time we went trying to kind of mess with the bot or like move it around. So it's an interesting way of feeling, when you're like so small in this world. And I don't know, it was it was an interesting project to kind of build it all together, and I was leading it, so that was fun
Yeah,
for me specifically.
yeah. I'm sure that had to be pretty crazy. I guess the last project I put out there was I made a desk organizer with some 3D printed parts and stuff. But that sounds quite trivial compared to yours. So
Well, 3D printing can be trivial sometimes, especially when it should print correctly and something goes wrong, and then you do it again and something goes wrong again and again and again. So
yeah,
3D
yeah,
printing is not the easiest task.
yeah. So I guess you kind of asked it early, but where's the best way to find you guys? And I guess surrogate.tv, right? That's your
Yes, so
website?
you can go to surrogate.tv and you can learn everything about us there. You can also follow us on social media everywhere, like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, which is Surrogate TV. Make sure to follow us now because we just opened our merch store, so we're giving out some giveaways from our merch store. So if
Oh
you
yeah,
follow some of those posts and comment under them, you might get swag of your choice. We are giving out
nice.
free items of your choice from our store.
Yeah. So you
So
have shirts and sweaters and
everything.
various
We have
things like
mouse
that.
pads, we have cups, we have beanies, we have everything.
So if you're like in Florida, you might want like a shirt, but if you're in Finland, you might want like a
Hoodie and a
hoodie, I
beanie
guess.
and
Yeah, hoodie
socks,
and a beanie, of course,
and a mug for hot tea
for
or coffee.
hot tea or whatever you like to drink, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, Stan, thanks so much for joining us today. Like you
it was
said,
a
we can
pleasure
find
being
you at
here.
surrogate.tv. I'm Jeremy S. Cook. You can find me on social media, wherever that is. And if you got a comment, maybe you know what that connector is, you can email me at hi@jeremyscook.com or info@jeremyscook.com if you prefer something a little more formal. So, so yeah, thanks. Anything else you got to say to the people or just,
No, we got some cool projects coming up, so stay tuned.
yeah, well, thanks a lot. And
And
I guess we'll see you guys later.
bye.